Greetings and welcome to Teddy English Stories. Have you ever had the impression that your ideas were preventing you from moving forward? We will discuss a potent concept that has the potential to transform your life today. Perhaps you wanted to try something new, but a tiny voice in your head told you, you can't do this. The strength of optimistic thought. Additionally, while you listen to this narrative, you will gradually and easily get better at English. Allow me to share a tale with you. Alaric Vance is my name. I work in a peaceful city by the sea as a junior architect. I create little structures, primarily homes and cafes. My life appears steady on the outside. I live in a little apartment, have a job, and follow a set daily schedule. However, my mind frequently feels heavy on the inside. Upon awakening each morning, I gaze at my image in the mirror. I don't yell it, but I tell myself the same thing practically every morning. You are not good enough. I don't say it out loud. It's simply a silent notion. However, it never goes away. I didn't see it at first. It seemed like background noise. But that little idea started to expand over time. It went to work with me. When I spoke with my supervisor, it remained with me. It also accompanied me while I tried to sketch fresh patterns while sitting by myself at night. I remained late at work one evening. The lights were chilly, and the room was quiet. I was designing something for a little community library. The project was significant. It may lead to a promotion, according to my supervisor. However, I had a strong pressure in my chest when I examined my artwork. This is not good, I said. I repeatedly deleted my work, saying, someone else can do better. Each line felt incorrect. Every concept seems feeble. Hours went by, but I didn't really advance. Then, an odd thing occurred. Leora, one of my coworkers, entered the workplace. She wasn't meant to be there at that late hour. She gave me a kind grin. I nodded and said, "You're still here, Alaric?" She approached and examined my sketch, saying, "I'm trying to fix this design, but it's not working." Without saying anything, she examined it closely. My heart started to beat more quickly. I was worried about her response. I about burst out laughing when she responded, "This is actually very good." She shook her head slowly, saying, "No, it's not. It's full of mistakes." I was taken aback when she said, "No, it's not perfect, but it has feeling. It has purpose. You just don't see it." That was something no one had ever stated. I stared at her, perplexed. I was intrigued by her statement, "Because I used to think like you." She brought a chair and sat down to me. "How can you be so sure?" I said. "What do you mean?" She inhaled deeply and glanced out the window at the gently gleaming city lights. "I used to believe that every idea I had was not enough," she said. I listened intently and remained mute. I compared myself to everyone. I focused on my weaknesses, and slowly I stopped growing. But one day, she went on, someone told me something simple. They said, "Your thoughts are shaping your reality." I didn't believe her at first. It sounded too simple. I reclined in my seat. Her statements had an odd yet intriguing quality. I said, "So, what changed?" She grinned once again, but not in the same way. It had a more profound feel. "I decided to test it," she stated. I scowled a little and said, "Just as an experiment." I started to change the way I spoke to myself. She nodded and said, "You mean positive thinking?" I glanced down at my picture once again and said, Yes, but not fake happiness, not pretending everything is perfect. Real, honest, positive thinking. I said, how can thinking change anything? She gestured to my drawing. Because your thoughts affect your actions, and your actions create your results. I didn't respond. A part of me resisted, even though I wanted to comprehend. She got up and moved in the direction of the door. She turned around and uttered something that stuck with me before she left. Tomorrow, she said, try one thing. When you wake up, don't say I'm not good enough. Say, I am learning. I am improving. Just try it for one day. Then she went. Once more, I sat by myself. There was silence in the workplace, but not in my head. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. The phrases were awkward, nearly incorrect, like wearing ill-fitting clothing. Her voice followed me as I collected my belongings and headed home. I had trouble falling asleep that night. Her statement kept coming back to me. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. A part of me wanted to turn it down. A second half was intrigued. As usual, I stood in front of the mirror the following morning. The same face, the same weary eyes, and suddenly the time arrived. My old idea attempted to surface. You are inadequate. However, I hesitated this time. I recalled what Leora had said. I said something different, slowly and uncertainly. I am learning. I am improving. Although it was a novel statement, it seemed shaky and insecure. And later that day, something unexpected occurred at work, so that little alteration started something I did not anticipate, something that caused me to doubt all of my self-beliefs. And it was only the start, not in a significant manner, but that morning felt different. It was a tiny, nearly undetectable shift. Even yet, I sensed a change occurring within me, a subtle shift in my mind. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. Walking to work, I said the same thing once more. It didn't feel impossible anymore, but it still felt weird. Everything appeared to be the same when I got to the workplace. The same desks, the same faint keyboard sounds, and the same aroma of coffee. But now, my mind was paying closer attention. I took a seat and started working on my community library design. Normally, I would experience tension right away. Before anything else, I would check for errors. However, I attempted something new this time. I asked, what is working here? Rather than, what is wrong with this? I first didn't find anything. My thoughts remained silent. It was utilized to think negatively rather than positively. However, a few seconds later, I became aware of a little detail. The doorway appears inviting. I didn't think that was very successful. Even if it was only one minor element, it was nevertheless significant. Then I discovered something else. There is a lot of natural light coming in via the windows. I gradually started to view my work differently. Not flawless, but not awful either. It's simply incomplete and constantly developing. My supervisor, Kalen, invited me into his office later that day. His speech was usually serene, and he was a serious, unemotional man. My pulse began to race. Alaric, he added, I want to see your progress on the library project. I was always afraid of this moment. I approached his desk and presented my concept to him. I awaited criticism. I anticipated that he would discover issues right away. He spent a long time staring at the drawing. I blinked as he remarked, "This is interesting. It's interesting." He gave a nod. The structure is simple, but the space feels open. It invites people inside. I was a little taken aback. Leora's remarks echoed his. He gestured to a section of the pattern. Normally, I would just hear the bad portion. However, this section needs improvement. It feels too closed. I would disregard everything else and concentrate on the error. However, something was different this time. Both were audible to me. Indeed, there was an issue. But there was also a positive aspect. I understand, I said. He nodded briefly and said, I will improve that section. Good. I believe you can make this design stronger. I walked out of his office in quiet, but my mind was racing. I think you can. It had been a while since anyone had said that to me. I went back to my workstation and sat there for a while without doing anything. I attempted to think as I used to. They are only being courteous. It's not very good. But then I recalled what Leora had said. Your world is being shaped by your ideas. I inhaled slowly. No, I said to myself. I am learning. I am improving. I worked in a different way that afternoon. I didn't hurry. I didn't repeatedly wipe everything. I concentrated on one issue at a time, and an unexpected event occurred. I did make some progress. Real progress, not flawless or quick progress. Days went by, and I kept up my little routine. I spoke the same thing while standing in front of the mirror each morning. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. I felt like I was lying at first. However, it began to seem feasible after a few days. After a week, another unexpected event occurred. I got an email. It came from a different city's design competition. My application was submitted months ago, but I had forgotten about it. I didn't think I had a chance to win at the moment. As I opened the message, my palms felt chilly. I stopped reading when it said, Dear Alaric Vance, we are pleased to inform you. My heart was pounding too quickly. I briefly closed my eyes before opening them once again and carrying on. I looked at the screen and said that your design has been selected for the final round. I repeatedly read the sentence, chosen, last round. It didn't seem authentic. An intense feeling surged through me. This time, do not be afraid. Something different, I hope. I got up and hurried to locate Leora. She was working silently at her desk. Leora, I murmured while attempting to control my voice. She glanced up at my face and said, I need to show you something. I gave her the email and said, What happened? After attentively reading it, she grinned broadly at me. I knew it, she declared. I gave a head shake. She crossed her arms and gave me a stern look, saying, No, this must be luck. No, Alaric, this is not luck. This is your work. And maybe it is also your new way of thinking. I paused. She nodded and said, You really believe that? I scowled a little and said, Yes, but this is only the beginning. What do you mean? Her face darkened. The final round is not easy, she remarked. You will present your design in front of a group of experts. They will ask questions. They will challenge your ideas. My abdomen constricted. The old worry began to resurface. I don't know if I can do that, I said. She moved in closer. I glanced at the ground and said, This is your next test, Alaric. Not just your design, your thinking. My thoughts started to chatter once again. What happens if I don't succeed? What happens if I completely forget everything? What happens if they think I'm not good enough? Stronger than ever, the old voice had returned. Leora touched my shoulder. "You have two choices," she said. I didn't respond because I understood something crucial deep down. You can go back to your old thoughts, or you can continue this new path. This was more than simply a contest. This had to do with who I was becoming into. One question lingered in my thoughts as I sat by myself in my apartment that evening, reviewing the email once more. Was I truly prepared to have faith in myself? Or if the instant fear reappeared, I lose everything? The solution would not be simple, but it would arrive soon. I didn't turn on the lights in my flat that evening. As I sat at the window, I observed the city gradually drifting off to sleep. My laptop's email was still open, quietly gleaming in the darkness, chosen for the last round. Now those words felt weighty. They gave me optimism at first, but now they also made me afraid. I closed my eyes and reclined in my chair. What happens if I don't succeed? The question reappeared, more forceful than before. I pictured myself in front of an expert-filled chamber. I observed their grave expressions. I heard their challenging inquiries. I can't remember what I said. I committed errors. I appeared feeble. My chest was constricted. "This is too much," I said. "I am not ready." I briefly wanted to shut off the laptop and put everything behind me. I wanted to go back to my tranquil, secure existence. No pressure, no dangers. But then something else sprang to mind. Clear, gentle, and serene. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. I gently opened my eyes. Now the sentence felt different. It was no longer merely a routine. It seemed like a decision. I got up and went to the mirror. There was something fresh in my eyes, yet my reflection appeared worn out. Something modest but genuine. "I am afraid," I admitted. I then inhaled deeply, "but I am still learning. I am still improving." Although the terror persisted, it subsided, and I realized something significant in that calm time. Eliminating fear is not the goal of positive thinking. It is about continuing on despite the presence of dread. I decided the following morning I would enter the tournament because I wanted to improve rather than because I felt confident. The days that followed were difficult. These were actually some of the hardest days of my life. I needed to have my presentation ready. I had to give a detailed explanation of my design. I had to respond to unexpected queries. Everything seemed disorganized at first. I talked too quickly. I lost track of my points. I became distracted. I sat down and buried my face with my hands one evening, following a demanding practice day. "This is not working," I declared. The old voice had returned. "You are inadequate." This time, it felt more powerful, nearly convincing. I was silent for a long time. After that, I carefully took my hands off and examined my notes. "No," I muttered. I recalled what Leora had said to me. "This is part of learning. Growth is unsettling." I got back up. "I am learning," I said once again. "I am improving." However, I added something new this time. "I am not perfect, and that is okay." Everything was altered by that statement. I gave up striving to be flawless after that. Rather, I concentrated on being explicit. I made an effort to explain, rather than to impress. I worked on speaking slowly. I worked on putting my thoughts into straightforward language. I saw the audience as individuals who wanted to learn, rather than as judges. And gradually, something incredible occurred. I started to feel at ease, Not always, not entirely, but sufficient to keep going. At last, the competition day came. The structure was spacious and contemporary. The interior was airy and light, with glass walls. It felt serious and significant. As I entered, my hands felt chilly. There were already other contestants. Some appeared self-assured. Some were conversing with ease. Some were intently going over their notes. I felt diminished once more. I wanted to go for a second. I don't belong here, I thought to myself. However, I stopped moving after that. I briefly closed my eyes. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. I opened my eyes once again and moved forward. My name was called when it was my turn. Vance Alaric. Suddenly, the room was quite silent. I moved to the front. Even though my heart was racing, I continued to move. I gazed at the crowd as I stood in front of them. At a long table were 3 judges. Their expressions were solemn but composed. I inhaled deeply. My thoughts was blank for a moment. This was the time. The moment that may alter everything was the one I had anticipated, feared, and planned for. I recalled every practice, every uncertainty, and every tiny shift in my perspective. After that, I started. My voice was calm but not flawless as I said, "Good morning. My name is Alaric Vance. Today, I want to share a design that focuses on connection, light, and community." As I went on, an unexpected event occurred. I remembered what I said. I didn't freeze. Rather, I was in the moment. I gave a thorough explanation of my thoughts. I demonstrated my design in detail. I discussed the intent behind each particular element. When necessary, I even halted. I took a breath. The judges were paying attention when I glanced at them. Paying close attention, the judges started asking questions once I was done. Some were simple, while others were challenging. I didn't know the right response at one point. This time, I maintained my composure when my previous self would have freaked out. "That is a good question," I said. "I have not fully solved that part yet, but I am exploring different ideas." The judge sighed, not because I knew everything, but rather because I was sincere and yet self-assured. That moment felt strong. I gently left the room once it was finished. My head was full, yet my body felt light. Did I perform well? I questioned myself. I'm not sure, but I tried my hardest. And it felt sufficient for the first time in a long time. All participants were summoned back to the main hall later that evening. The outcomes were prepared. My heart began to race once again. This was the last moment. After entering the stage, the announcer opened an envelope. I held my breath and said, "The winner of this year's design competition is..." After a moment of silence, a name was called, but it wasn't mine. I felt nothing for a moment. Then I felt a silent despair in my chest. I remained still, attempting to comprehend my emotions. After all, I had not prevailed. I was not victorious. Strangely, though, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel inadequate. Rather, I had an unanticipated feeling of self-respect. I had confronted my fear. My perspective had shifted. I had matured, and I came to an essential realization as I stood there in that silent moment. It wasn't the greatest triumph to win. I had undergone another inward transformation, something more profound. And that shift will soon present me with a chance I never would have thought about. I remained in the hallway for a short while longer, taking in the cheers for the victor. People were taking pictures, shaking hands, and grinning. It was a joyful moment, but it wasn't mine. At least that's what I initially believed. I then turned slowly and moved in the direction of the exit. My head was filled with silent ideas, yet my steps were tranquil. You were not victorious. Yes, but you also didn't fail. I was taken aback by that second notion. It was soft, like a fresh voice within me. The nighttime air was chilly outside. I inhaled deeply and raised my gaze to the heavens. I could still make out a few stars, despite the glaring city lights. I did my best, I muttered. And those words didn't feel like a flimsy justification for the first time. They felt genuine, powerful, and honest. I heard someone calling my name as I turned to go. Alaric. I spun around. A judge was approaching me, the oldest of the three. He had a contemplative look and serene gaze. He said, "Do you have a moment?" "Yes, of course," I said, a bit taken aback. He gave a little smile. My pulse began to race once more as she said, "I wanted to speak with you about your presentation. Was something wrong?" "I really appreciated your design," he said. "But more than that, I appreciated how you presented it." I glanced. He bowed and said, "Thank you." For a little pause, he said, "You were clear, honest, and thoughtful. You didn't try to be perfect. You tried to communicate. That is a rare skill," he added. I felt a little warmth in my chest when she said, "And it is something we value greatly. We are working on a new community project," he stated. He paused, looked straight at me, and said, "And we are looking for someone who can grow with the team, someone who is open, willing to learn, and able to think with purpose. Would you be interested in joining us?" I was momentarily speechless. The query seemed surreal. At last, I said, "Join you?" He gave a nod. My eyes widened as I said, "Yes." Not as a winner of the competition, but as someone with potential, possibility. Something deep within of me was struck by the word. I didn't think I had any until a few weeks ago. And now it was visible to another person. I would be honored," I replied in a shaky voice. He grinned. "Good. We will contact you soon." After shaking hands, he turned to go. I remained still. Now the night felt different. The city had a new vibe. I felt different too. Although I didn't win the competition, I did get something far more significant. My self-perception had shifted, and a better door opened as a result of that shift. My life gradually started to change in the weeks that followed. I became a member of the new project team. I collaborated with seasoned designers. I acquired new abilities. I committed errors. And I gained knowledge from them. However, my employment did not undergo the most significant transformation. I was thinking about it. I continued to stand in front of the mirror each morning and say the same thing. But now I trusted them when they said, "I am learning. I am improving." Not flawlessly, not daily, but increasingly. And those straightforward words developed into something potent over time. They altered my methods of operation. They altered my speech pattern. They altered my approach to dealing with issues. My life was not made flawless by optimistic thinking. It provided me power, but did not eliminate obstacles. It provided me with guidance. It made me feel hopeful. Above all, it enabled me to advance. I thus understand if you are listening to this narrative and thinking that it won't work for you. I used to think the same thing. However, it's possible that you might attempt a single little modification, statement, or novel idea, because often the largest changes in your life can result from the slightest shift in your way of thinking. And that's the real power of optimistic thinking. It's time to pick up some helpful language from today's tale. The picture you see on a surface or in a mirror is called a reflection. For instance, I glanced at my image in the mirror. Stress or anxiety is referred to as pressure. For instance, I had pressure before to my presentation. An opportunity is a chance to achieve something worthwhile or novel. For instance, I think this position is a fantastic chance. Potential is the capacity to develop or improve in the future. For instance, she has the capacity to be an excellent leader. To be honest is to be genuine and truthful. For instance, he answered honestly. To improve is to get better. For instance, I wish to get better at English every day. Let's practice shadowing now. Pay attention and repeat what I've said. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm getting better. It's all right that I'm not flawless. I tried my hardest. I have faith in my own development. I am able to proceed. My life may be altered by my thinking. I sincerely appreciate you using this novel to learn English. I now want to ask you some questions. Have you ever thought poorly of yourself? What brief, uplifting statement can you say each day? Do you think your way of thinking has the power to transform your life? Put your responses in the comment section. I'd be delighted to read them. Continue to learn, practice, and have faith. I'll see you in the upcoming tale.